Oh, hi, Aquarius. Welcome to your May reading. Okay, get your pen and paper out or open a notepad on your phone because I have some dates for you. First of all, from the 10th, which was today, to the end of the month, it's all about love. Now, it's not all about love the way you think it is, though. It's all about love as in you're feeling the feelings of the present, you're feeling the feelings of the past, you're feeling where the hooks are, you might end up getting pregnant. And there's a couple of days here where you rediscover your beauty, your sexy, your love. A new mind is coming into play, a new you. And it's based more on feelings than you've probably ever been. It may be disconcerting for you actually to be this emotional, but I want you to go with it. Part of what happens, let me give you those dates first of all, where you're rediscovering, cutting things off. By things, I mean cords between you and toxic people. We have the 11th of May, the 17th, and the 29th. Those are your 3 days where you are shining, you are feeling beautiful, you are feeling worthy, you're feeling ready. And also, in contrast to all that, you're looking at what was and going, oh, that's what I used to be hung up on? Wow, because like how? I would never, but you did for a long time. And you were stuck for a long time. But now you're moving on. And as soon as you move on, well, you move on because you rediscover yourself, because you rediscover that beautiful, sexy you. And when you do, the moving on is easy. You're not moving on from anyone or anything anymore. You're moving on towards yourself, towards the you that you used to be before the thing happened. Yeah, that person. Now, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's very easy to get caught up in this amorous wave and perhaps go a little too far. Protect yourself. Be very careful if you don't want to get pregnant. Be very careful if you don't want to be in a relationship because you're so vulnerable right now that it's easy to make some mistakes. It's easy to write some checks that you can't cash. Actually, that's appropriate astrologically for your money as well. You will, after the 13th, want to overspend when Jupiter goes into Pisces. You're overestimating your resources and you don't want to be left at the end of the month not being able to pay what you need to pay, or if you have a business or a side hustle, pay the people that work with you. You may want to spend more than you have on work-related items, thinking that you'll make that money back. But the retrograde, Saturn retrograde, starts on the 23rd and money slows down. So overestimating your resources from the 13th to the 23rd could get you in a lot of trouble. So those 10 days, no matter how much you want to spend, just don't. Just promise yourself, especially if it's work-related stuff, because that's how you're going to justify it to yourself. No, this is money stuff and I'm going to use it to make more money, so that's okay, and I have all this money. Save it. Yeah, I agree with you, but just save it. Just hold on to it. Hey, if you save it, it'll still be there. You can always spend it later. Just do it after Saturn retrograde. Better, easier. On the 26th, at that lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, you're feeling really lucky, like high on love, but those pay issues start to show up even there. And even though you're getting very lucky with work, it's not going to correlate right away into financial success. So that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit confusing because you're feeling successful, you're getting more and more opportunities, your business is growing or your work is growing, and yet you're still financially feeling like you just started and it doesn't match up. It's like, if I'm doing so much and I'm working so hard and I'm getting all these opportunities, why isn't it financially adding up? Why do I still feel so small? It's the retrogrades. Don't let it get to you. You don't have to prove your commitment to your job, to your hustle, to your career goals or your aspirations. You don't have to prove anything by spending money. You don't have to invest in it financially to prove your commitment. Just keep investing with doing the work. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. It'll come. Of course it will. You are right. You are doing the work. You are right. It should then stand to reason that you would make this money. And you will, inshallah. You will make it. It's just going to take a little bit longer than you thought. And in June, you're booming. So God willing, it all works out. Just that 10-day window is a test. Sometimes we feel like if we put a bunch of money into something, it'll work better. And most times that's just not the case. Financially, that stagnation can start to get to you, but there's a really good reason behind it. I'm going to give you an example from Coffee Prince. And if you haven't seen it, or if you're not into K-dramas, you're like, what is she talking about? Oh, just the most gorgeous man ever. Regardless, in Coffee Prince, there's this guy. He's like this spoiled rich kid, and he doesn't want to do anything, and he doesn't want to get married, and he doesn't want to run a business. He just doesn't want to do anything. He just wants to do what he wants to do, right? So his grandmother, after trials and tribulations and trying to get him to do all this stuff that he won't do, she finally hands over this failing coffee shop to him. And she tells him that if he doesn't triple the profit, that she's going to take away his inheritance and take away his apartment, take away his car, and take away his lifestyle. And he comes back having, acquiesced to her demands. He comes back and is like, okay, cool. This is what I need to get this coffee shop running. I need, millions and millions and millions of this, and I need millions for this, and I need millions for this, and then it'll give you your profits. And the grandmother's like, yeah, no. Use what you have. Do it yourself. I'm not giving you any more money. You got to make it work with what you got. And you know what? He does. And in the process, he learned something very valuable. Aside from the whole liking the girl who thinks is a boy thing. Well, we'll talk about that later. What he learns is that success was never predicated on having a certain amount of money or making it look a certain way. He has to leave the crutches he's been using all his life behind. And instead of paying a bunch of people to fix things up the way they should be, he has to get in there and do it himself. And ultimately, it's what teaches him the value of what he's doing, and it adds so much value to him. It raises his self-esteem so much in the right way, as opposed to this kind of empty, bravado that he was walking around with before. So you are, lucky you, in many ways in the Coffee Prince's shoes. You have this idea and it's great, and you know that if you had X amount of resources, you could absolutely make it work. But what if you just have to do it with what you have right now and you couldn't spend any more? What would you do? Good, do that. Huge rebirth coming up for you. Huge. By the 29th, you're thinking, that's when Mercury goes retrograde, you're thinking of revising your entire financial life. Now you've got this business, this side hustle, this new job, whatever it is that you're invested in, And you've got to sit down and create a whole new financial life. We've been talking about financial freedom for a while now. But in May, especially mid-May until mid-June, you have that conversation with the grandma. And the grandma's like, no, make it work, baby. And that makes you sit down and go, how do I make this work? What can I do? And as you start to revise it, something funny starts to happen. You start revising yourself. You start looking at yourself in a completely different light. You are now a business person. Sure, you're love and light. Sure, you're a humanitarian. Sure, there is all this love stuff going on, especially, 17th, around there, you have this overwhelming need to say the love you feel, to feel all your feels, to let people in. But at the same time, there's this other part of you working, not overthinking as you usually do, just working hard on this freedom. It is so easy to want to pay for freedom. It is so easy to take that road. But you won't learn anything that way. What you don't want to do is reinvent yourself, but have that reinvention, have the foundation based on buying your way into it, spending your way into it, impulse shopping your way into it. We just want to close that door. You want to take what you have, rearrange it, reform it, do what you need to do, and make it work. And if you're able to do that, at the end of the month, you take some rest, you take some time, you put the swords up, you put the thoughts away, and a funny thing happens as we move into June. There you are. Beautiful, shining, all the money starts coming in, and you think, I didn't need to spend it. Came in anyway. Of course it did. Because you have been working and wanting this for so long. And you finally learn that super important lesson that it's not what you have, it's what you put into it. It's good. It's very lucky. Around the 26th, you feel that luck. As you don't spend from the 13th to the 26th, you start to feel that luck. Like, yeah, I didn't need to do that. Look, it ended up happening anyway. Yeah, I didn't need to spend money on that. It ended up happening anyway. Yeah, I didn't need to tell that person that thing. They did it anyway. Perfect. And it clicks for you. And hopefully it's a permanent click. So as you move forward through the summer, you make more and more money, God willing. And instead of it coming in and going back out, it just starts to pour in and accumulate. Perfect. Now, do we both know that that money is going to end up being used on animals, social justice, helping other people? Of course, we know this already. We know what you're going to do. It's not about saving it to have it. It's about saving it to teach yourself something. We're going to talk about love too, but we'll talk about that when you can look at the cards. Love you. Hi Aquarius, welcome to your mid-May reading. I am incredibly sorry for the lateness of this video. It truly has nothing to do with my feelings about you. In fact, it is because of what is going on in the world, and I did not feel that it was fair to you for me to do the second part of your reading in tears or sobbing. And quite honestly, I have been doing not much else for the last few days. So now that I've gotten myself together and have found a way to speak about what's going on in the world, it has given me a little bit of room from my feelings, which then gives me room to do the work. So apologies. Let's get into your reading. So Ace of Swords. For you, the Ace of Swords, that new mind is really about opening up. If you can open up starting today, and then from today until the 29th, you have this resurgence where you start to remember that you are beautiful, you are sexy, you are desirable. And not that that is all that matters, but it hits you like a wave today and you remember who you are, right? So opening up, as much as I'm saying it's a new mind, Ace of Swords, it's really just a return to how you used to feel about yourself a long time ago before the damage was done. Yes, that's me pointing at the King of Pentacles. Because a lot of you have endured that damage because of the communication with this earth figure, right? From the 26th on, you have this love high and you feel new, you feel a rebirth. You feel like that young, new, unblemished side of you reemerge. And that side of you attracts everything. It attracts wealth, it attracts love, but also what it's going to do around the eclipse is it's going to show you where you have been hanging on to the wrong things and what has been keeping you from really receiving the love that you deserve, right? You also have on the 29th, this big win come in terms of money. You're revising your entire financial strategy. You want to pour a bunch of money into something, but instead you realize that really it's about you leaving your feelings about how you are in terms of money in the past. You can't keep relating to an identity anymore that's not you. You're identifying with financial patterns that just don't apply to you anymore. So along with this deep insight, this new luck, receiving new love, you've also got to keep making room. You know, you've got to keep making room within you, and you've got to let go of a lot of these resentments that you've been carrying around for quite some time. A big part of that is moving slowly, getting the rest that you need, right? But also putting the swords away so you can be more available to the things that want to come in, right? The overthinking has to stop before you can recognize who you truly are again. Because this is your natural state. This is your natural state. This is your natural state. And anything that's gotten in the way of that has kept you from remembering who you really are. Now, a lot of you are addicted to the new person that you became under that abuse, under that narcissistic dynamic that you were in with someone. And you may have forgotten who you used to be. In that case, this rebirth is huge for you, especially around the 29th as Mercury goes into retrograde and you feel this exhaustion start to set in. In fact, the exhaustion starts to set in around the 23rd, which is Saturn retrograde. But by the time you get to the 29th, you're like, I feel like I'm dying and being reborn. I feel completely new. And it's really important to remember that it's not actually you being new. It's you getting back to your natural state. And I can't emphasize, I know I've said it a couple of times, but I can't emphasize that enough, because your natural state is not something that a lot of people are comfortable with. They've gotten used to you being that damaged version of yourself. They've gotten used to you being, used to your personality being a reaction to trauma, right? A reaction to trauma caused by others, but also a reaction caused by trauma to yourself, right? So a lot of times when Aquarians experience trauma, they take it out on themselves by continuing that trauma on their own. So you may have been financially abusing yourself for quite some time because it kept you stuck in this cycle of overthinking, of stress, and that's what you got used to. So your thoughts kept giving this simulation the feedback that I need more of this, right? But once you break out of that, you find all these different ways that you can make money, all these different streams, perhaps one thing in particular that you genuinely feel is great for you, and it gives you the opportunity to give to people so openly. And you may not have even 6 months ago thought this was a possibility for you. And it gives you a lot more financial freedom. Now, what you do with that financial freedom is up to you. You can pour that financial freedom back into that trauma reactive personality that was made kind of like a scab over a wound, and you can feed that more. Or you can simply let go and not be afraid of the new you, i.e. the old you that emerges, right? Being in touch with that pure youngest version of you, your inner child, however you're comfortable classifying it, is the key to the next 4 weeks or so. Because after that, the universe is now addressing that pure you again. And it's important for you to get there, to be accepting of it, to not feel overly vulnerable because of it, because you will feel vulnerable. But vulnerability is also a test, right? Vulnerability and being able to receive are very closely related. So in many ways, you have been the person who hardened themselves to not let anything hurtful in, but in the process was bouncing away all these great opportunities that could have actually helped you heal and grow. You just weren't ready to let anything in, right? So now that you are, now that you're being forced to, now that all that reactive behavior, all those levels of scar tissue that you've built up are being pulled away, this person that's been waiting inside of you to emerge and to rule, right? They get to come forward, but they need your support. They need your help. You can't put on them, no, I'm only going to be that person again when I have X amount of money, when I have X amount of friends, when I have a new love relationship, because that inner you, that inner child, doesn't care about any of that stuff. And if you remember back to your own childhood, these were not concerns of yours. Your concerns were doing the things that you loved. Your concerns were spreading love. Your concerns were making other people feel as good as you did inside. Now, of course, being that way has gotten you into some very sticky situations and has caused quite a bit of pain. But what you learn from now until mid-June is that that's not a bad thing. As this inner you emerges and takes control, what you'll realize is that all the stuff you've been through, when you're not being reactive about it, it becomes referential knowledge. It actually makes you better. It makes you smarter once you take the sting out of it. Okay? Now, for a lot of you, this also has to do with the death of something material that you thought that your identity and your life was going to be based on. And now Saturn goes into retrograde and shows you a different way. And you're thinking, oh, well, I thought my identity was all wrapped up in this thing that I used to be, or this education that took so long, or this badge that I've been, proudly displaying all these years as this is me. And now you're going to reformulate that. There's a couple of lessons in there to be learned. Anything that you are holding as a badge, identifying you as this or that, is going to limit you. Hopefully, right? The hope here is that you learn from this process to of course, be into things, be interested in things, to excel where you want to, but not to identify too closely with anything insofar as it becomes a pressure. Now you've got to do it this way. Now it has to be this way because otherwise you're not you. No, false. You are you, regardless of what you do or don't do. Start there. Because once you have that firmly established, this push, this pressure, this overthinking that comes with the pressure, you don't fall into that hanged man space because you don't allow yourself once again to make that same mistake, right? So your previous mistakes become beneficial, and you also learn not to make that mistake again, no matter how much you like the new thing that you start doing. Don't identify too closely with it. Many people have an issue with this because we like to categorize each other. We like to put each other in these neat boxes. You, by definition, can't be characterized because you are many things. You are fixed and intelligent and outgoing and very loving and very caring, but also introverted. You can also be selfish. You can also be a bit paranoid because the overthinking can get on top of you. So all of those things, if you lay them out, many of those are contradictory. No, anyone who's trying to place you in one box or another is going to be really frustrated with you, right? So what happens when you take an already contradictory nature and then you add some extra self-esteem to that person and they say, yes, well, this is how I am, and no, I can't be defined, and no, I refuse to define myself from here on out, and I'm going to do this and this and this, but I'm not going to closely, right, affiliate myself so much so that I forget once again who I am. It's very, very positive. It's sticky, but it's very positive. And when you come out of this in June, you'll feel that rejuvenation, but you'll also feel, and this is the most important part here, the freedom to actually win, right? Not to survive, not to get by, not to skulk through it, but to actually win on your terms. Because if it's not on your terms, it's not actually winning. Good? We're going to go right into this extended and deal with this earth sign, this Scorpio, this Capricorn, but also all the leaving that has to happen professionally. We'll get into that extended. It's on Vimeo. It's going to be on Patreon under the Aquarius tier or the Aquarius plus the Za tier. If you're wondering what on earth is the Za, it is a place that we walk to. It is a walking meditation that happens every other day or so on Insta, and then they are saved to Patreon. You can find them there. If you are interested in a personal reading, there is a Cameo link below, which will link you to be able to get a 7 to 10 minute recorded reading where you put in your information and I get back to you within a 4-day period. And if you are interested in a look at the daily astrological transits and how they affect your sign, come on over to Insta and join the Rev Fam at the Quietest Revolution and take a look at your daily horoscope. If you are interested in these beautiful revolution rings or this Nazar bracelet, there's also a Nazar earring, please take a look at the Revolution Rings link below, and also the Quietest Revolution Rings Insta, where you'll see lots of Rev Fam enjoying their new pieces. I love you, love you. Again, apologies. Thank you for your patience and for giving me the space that I needed to really think through my emotions and come to a place where I could do my work, cleanly without muddying up the waters. I love you, love you. I'll see you in the extended right now.